Welcome and thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to summarize the inductees, talk a little bit about some of their very impressive accomplishments. Then we'll have them come up and say a few words for 5 to 7 minutes. If anybody wants to come up and take a photo, don't be bashful, we're all friends here, right? Feel free to come up, take a photo, that's fine. And then we'll just get rolling, okay? Before we get started and introduce the first inductee, part of the process is we're certainly going to acknowledge the inductee, but I did want to say a couple quick things related to the committee, which Bill Poole will be the first inductee tonight, a very valuable member of the committee. But I also wanted to acknowledge Fred Hammond, who was part of our committee. And one of my few jobs is not to bring the room down, right? But let's celebrate. Fred Hammond, as we all know, I never ran track, but I'm sure he was a great coach. And if he was half as good a coach as he was a person, that means he was a phenomenal coach. So along those lines, our first inductee is Bill Poole. So Bill was an original member of the committee from its inception back in 2003. Bill, in terms of us being here this evening, did an awful lot. He kept this program, this event alive. So I'm very honored to induct Bill Poole, the class of 1952, and by the way, Bill's profile is on page 13, into the Beverly High School Hall of Fame. So Bill was a passionate sports fan. He was an MIAA basketball official for over 30 years. And again, part of the big reason why we're here this evening is because of all Bill's work, his dedication, and his passion. So coming up to say a few words about his dad will be Brad Poole. So Brad, come on up, please.
Good evening, everybody. Wow, this is quite a crowd. I'm very impressed at what this special evening has become. I'm not sure how many of you actually knew my father, but I'm going to say a few things about him and his dedication to Beverly and Beverly sports. I want to first thank the committee and the current committee and recognizing his achievements over the years and the efforts that he's put in. I'm very proud to be here tonight to representing him. I want to thank the committee for recognizing his efforts from inauguration of this special event in 2003 till his passing 2 years ago. At that time, I don't think there was anybody that would have been a better and more knowledgeable person of Beverly sports to help kick off this annual event back in '03. Although never a great athlete himself, he was too short, couldn't run, couldn't jump, had a slow first, second, third step to the left and the right. No offense, Mr. Silver. But he knew sports inside and out. His lifelong love and passion was Beverly sports. He attended too many to mention youth and rec games, junior and senior high games, boys and girls. At one point, he attended 60 years, not 60 consecutive years of Beverly High School football games, both home and away. And that's astonishing. That's dedication, and that just shows where his dedication was to Beverly sports. He saw the person, all the great, personally he saw all these athletes, teams, and coaches. Beverly has produced some great ones. Many are here tonight. He truly bled Panther, orange, and black. I know he'd be proud of being inducted to this elite group tonight, but very, very humbled to him, as it was the athletes and the coaches that were important to him to be recognized. Congratulations to all the past inductees, many of which I actually played with or against in my younger days. The present athletes tonight being recognized and coaches being recognized, a couple of which I actually played with or against in my younger days. So I want to thank everyone for attending, and let's all help keeping this great event going on stronger and better each year moving forward. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Brad. Send us your resume for the MC job. That was pretty impressive, by the way. So the next inductee is going to be Coach Bill Buzza Foley. I did ask about the nickname. I didn't get much, so I'll keep digging on that. So Coach Foley established the boys soccer program at the young age of 22. He amassed an impressive 114, 34, and 26 record during his coaching career. Under his leadership, he took his teams to the state tournament 8 straight years. Bill was also a hockey, baseball player at BHS for 3 years and is a member of the class of 1969. Coming up to say a few words about her father is Caitlin. Please come up.
Thank you so much. So I recently met a new advisor in my office. She was from Beverly. As we got talking, I learned that she grew up in Montserrat, right off of Essex Street. And I said, hey, that's where my grandparents grew up. That's where, my aunt lived. And we talked about, Pisani's. I don't know if you remember that store. And we shared the same kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Ward, at Hannah School. And I told her, hey, my maiden name is Foley. Maybe you know my family. And she said, Bill Foley? Is Bill Foley your dad? I said, he was my teacher. I loved Mr. Foley. And this, as you can imagine, was not the first time that I heard, Bill Foley is your dad? I love Mr. Foley. Students, teachers, athletes, anyone that met him. But we're not here to talk about, my dad being an outstanding teacher, vice principal, police officer, father. We're here to talk about my dad being an amazing coach, and that he was. I even had the pleasure of my father coaching me throughout my volleyball career, through high school and college. My dad knew nothing about the sport of volleyball, nothing. He didn't know the difference between a pass, a set, a spike. But as my season went on, he coached me. He didn't need to know the sport through and through to coach. He just had that natural ability. I would see him in the bleachers at my games. He did this weird leaning thing. He laid down on the bleachers and, I'd look up and he'd just be observing everything. He wasn't the one cheering, kicking the bleachers, banging, clapping, whatever. He just sat there and never said anything. Had his chin in his hand and just looked. Again, he sat silent and only gave feedback when I least wanted it. But everything he said was right. It was spot on. My dad had it in his blood. He was born to coach, to be a leader, and to motivate. And that he did pretty damn well. At just 22 years old, as we've heard, 1974, my father established the Beverly soccer program. Coach Foley led the Panthers to 7 state tournament appearances in 9 seasons, including a trip to the championship game in 1978. Beverly soccer, as it stands today, is due to the standard that my dad set over 40 years. Thank you tonight for everyone here, the committee, to Todd Lampert, and the microphone for not banging down, for honoring my father tonight. I know he is here in spirit. I wish he was here to see this, but I'm glad he knew that he was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So thank you in honor of my mother, my sister, and myself, thank you.
Okay, next up, Paul Smith, class of 1973. And by the way, for Coach Foley's profile, page 8, and for Mr. Smith, that'll be page 15. Paul is an all-time track great in cross-country, indoor track, and outdoor track. A two-time Class A state champion in both the 1,000-yard and 1-mile runs in 1972 and 1973. And then during his illustrious track career, he broke 3 records during that time. So, Paul Smith.
Thank you. Wow, what a great meeting. I've seen people here tonight that I haven't seen in 50 years. That's 50. 5-0. So, let me see, there's a start here someplace. You know, I thought I organized this when I went out the door. This is the 3rd draft. All right, so it's an honor to be here tonight, obviously. Something I didn't really expect, because I first got my invitation to do this about 4 years ago, and we had COVID in the meantime. So I talked to a couple of people here, and Brad contacted me this year and said, it's real, it's going to happen. So I flew out from San Diego a couple of days ago in a red-eye, and yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It was Coach Fred Hammond's nomination that got me here, and that was really the greatest honor about this, is that Coach thought that much of me. I had a lot of respect for Mr. Hammond. He was a wonderful friend and advisor and a great coach.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, speak a little louder.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So it's bittersweet for me to be here and not see my coach. It was a terrible thing to hear about his passing. And one of the great reasons why he was a great coach was his knack of positive reinforcement. He never said a lot. He didn't criticize. Acceptance and participation were 2 key measures of his program. I think we must have had 125 people participating in indoor track in my senior year. It was astounding. He just ran a great program. I felt that I owed Coach my participation in return for that, because he was spending a lot of time on his team. He didn't put that time into his family. He was spending a lot of time caring for us. And I respected that a great deal. So I would do whatever he wanted me to do. So instead of running the mile that I wanted to do, he'd run me the 1,000 or the 2-mile or the quarter-mile if he thought I could help there. And I was fortunate to live up to his confidence in dual meets. I didn't lose a race in my outdoor season as a sophomore, indoors in my junior and senior years, and that included invitational meets and state meets, to outdoors in my junior and senior years, except a quarter-mile I still bitterly remember against the indoor Class A 300 champ from Peabody, of all places. It still galls me. It cost us the meet, and I felt guilty for that. I came back in 2016, not just to see Coach, but I really wanted to see Coach. My daughters had been after me. My son-in-law was curious. He was a great son. And they wanted to see Holy Cross, where I was brought in as a scholarship athlete. And they wanted to see Beverly. They really wanted to see Beverly. And I said, well, we're going to go to Beverly. We're going to go see my coach. And they wanted to go meet my coach. So we spent a great afternoon together. And when I got there, I hadn't seen Coach in 35 years. I've been meaning to come back. I came back for work a lot, but I just never found time to get back to the area. So we made arrangements, and we spent some time at the high school, and then we went off to the college. But we found an afternoon to share some time in that December of 2016. He seemed the same to me. He had lost his Lincoln beard that he wore when I was in high school. Their house had changed. He burned down the original with his cable TV box. But he had a beautiful home, and they were such generous hosts, Mr. and Mrs. Hammond. We sat down after pleasantries, and Coach spent the entire time praising Keith Barsani. I heard about Keith Barsani for a good 15 minutes, how great he had done, how wonderful he was as a runner, how dominant he was. After 15 minutes of this, I was like, okay, Gay, those pictures, is that your father's pictures? And we went off to look at his collection of paintings. He was a plein air painter up in Rockport. And they had a wonderful collection. So my daughters had a great time. I learned a lot about plein air painting in New England. We all came away with a great time with the family. It was a good experience. It was worth coming back to, despite Keith Barsani's memories. I want to correct a small attribution that I saw in the paper. I think somebody passed this on to me on Facebook, that I was a member of numerous state championship teams, and if anybody saw that, I want to say right away, I wanted us to win a state championship. That was a real goal of our junior and senior years, to win those championships, and we didn't. We never got closer than second, and we missed by a couple of points against Natick in my junior year. And again, that's kind of a bitter memory. It was so close. So this 1973 team that we're going to see this evening, those guys did a remarkable thing, and I want to be sure they get the adequate credit for that. It was a hard thing to do to win a state championship in track. That team included Brian Reinhold, who was an inductee here a few years ago. Wayne Miller, the shortest high school state champ in high school history, I think, 5'8". I think he jumped 6 feet that day. And Keith Barsani, he finished second to me in the 1,000, and it was his first season running, and that was a sign of what he was going to do later on. And so those points got us second that year. But, it's great for me to see Cliff Staples, Rick Purdy here tonight, Jim McGilloway. Sorry that Chris Bucknam couldn't make it. If people aren't familiar with how our graduates have done, Chris Bucknam ended up coaching at Arkansas, one of the greatest track programs in the United States. Great college program. So he's done really, really well since we graduated. So congratulations to you, 1973. You guys did an amazing job that year. It's good to see you here tonight. I was also very happy to meet Brian Norris tonight. We share an 800 relationship along the way. So congratulations on coming in tonight, Brian. So I just want to say it's a real honor to come here tonight. I just want to make sure that some of those names get mentioned. Some of the last names I want to mention are Norm Boudreau. I think there's still an event that's held here for him every year. I was in my sophomore year. He was the captain of the outdoor team that year, and he was a state champ. And I thought at the time he was like the coolest, best-looking dude in the whole high school. And one of my greatest memories of being in high school here is of him saying to me one day in the locker room, "Hey, you're doing pretty good. For a sophomore, you're winning. You're doing some good stuff here." And that was like the greatest moment of the whole season. I just couldn't believe he even knew who I was. Later, Steve Morse was killed in a tree removal accident, and he had gone with me to this all-states meet. And he was a great kid. And both those guys had something in common, that a lot of self-assurance, a lot of self-awareness, and great athletic ability. So in their passing, I just hope they're not forgotten. And last, I want to mention one of my best friends when I was here in Beverly was Jay Kalinos. And we lived near each other. We had a lot in common. His father was a Greek implant here and married to a Kentucky woman. Found a place along the coast there. And so we lived, a couple blocks from each other. Spent a lot of time together running. And one of the great memories I have of being back here in Beverly was running Tuckerman's Ravine with him one day. And we're going to hike it. And we ended up doing the whole thing in about 45 minutes to the top, and came down in just as fast. And it was just the joy of life, and that was what Beverly means to me. It was a great experience. So thanks for bringing me back. It's nice to know that Beverly never forgets their own. Yeah, thank you.
What's that? There's one in the school, but that one's yours. So get it through customs. What's that? Oh, sorry. Thank you.
All this?
All you. See, that's good. I wish it was cash. Great. Thank you, Paul. Okay, we're going to do some back-to-back Pauls. So the next inductee is Paul Doan, class of 1975. And you can read about Paul on page 7, but I'll say a couple of quick things. Definitely want to hear your story about how you ended up playing tennis, by the way. That seemed to be pretty interesting. But Paul is the first tennis player to be inducted into the Beverly High School Hall of Fame. So during Paul's time, he was a top singles player for Beverly, and he also led the team into 2 NEC championships. I think one might have been a tie with Marblehead, but I don't count that. I mean, they probably have their own private tennis courts and all that, when we know you probably had to practice like where there was cracks and grass, so much better experience. But ladies and gentlemen, Paul Doan.
No, I don't have the eyes I used to have, that's for sure. Well, since he asked, I mean, you'll have to kind of bear with me. I'm not great at talking to crowds, but anyway, I was my sophomore year running track, and remember Fred Hammond giving me a great sales pitch about, hey, you're pretty good with a 440, you know, that's what you want to run. And I was really into it. And you know, when I started working out with some of the upperclassmen, all of a sudden it's like I thought, you know, I was fairly fast at what I did, and then I'm going, oh my God, there's got to be an easier way. So I fell back on option 2, which was I could handle a tennis racket. And Coach Latanzi never asked me to come out to the team. I just showed up one day, and he kind of looked, and he says, you want to play? I said, yeah. And that's how it started. But anyway, what I'd like to do, first of all, is I'd like to thank the committee for selecting me. It's a real honor for me to be here. Next, I'd like to salute my coach, Lou Latanzi, who I think he could give Bill Belichick lessons in preparation, because Lou was the absolute best. And then finally, I'd like to recognize my teammates, and I'd like to thank them all. John Salt, who played number 2 for 3 years, and I can tell you the difference between John and I was usually points, and I just happened to come out on top. And you know, when I first heard that I was going to be inducted here, my first question to my wife was like, is John going to be here too? Because John was right up there record-wise and win-wise and everything else. Scott Green. Scott was probably the most tenacious guy on the court. He was challenging everybody all the time, and Scott, I think, worked harder and wanted it more than any of us. And, you know, Scott, you always had my utmost respect, because if I wasn't on my game, you were going to come clawing after me for sure. Steve Scholler, another one. Steve was like a silent assassin, okay? Never said too much, just went out, did his job, and coach would say, how'd you do, Steve? I got him. That was it. Jim Avalon and Mike Blanchette, I think they were our senior captains. And they were also a very formidable doubles team. And in crucial matches, those guys, when the coach looked at them and said, you got to come through with this, 90% of the time they did. And I take my hat off to them. And then there was, let's see, Charlie Close, Jim Cahill, Derek Wilson, Carl Wilson, and Louis Masfro. And those guys were like in a constant dogfight to see who was going to be playing doubles, and I think Coach Latanzi really enjoyed watching it because it was epic battles out there during practice, and sometimes, it'd get a little out of hand and they'd be screaming at each other or whatever, but Coach Latanzi was like, whoever wins is going to play that match, and that's what he went by. And I really, appreciated that. At this time, I'd like to dedicate this whole thing to my coach, my team, and especially to my family. And I'd like to thank you all, for this honor tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, next inductee, Bill Shea, class of 1980. So, Bill was a football, indoor track, and outdoor track standout. Related to indoor and outdoor track, he holds the all-time shot put records. He won 2 Class A state championships. I know there's been a lot of talk about Fred Hammond. I can say this for Paul, Bill, and the 73 team. He grew when he spoke about all of you. So keep that in mind. And Bill Shea.
Well, I guess I need to start. This is kind of difficult for me. I'm not used to talking about myself. I've done a lot of talks to different things, and talking about myself is kind of difficult. But I'd first like to thank all the committees. And, I'm thinking back when I was doing my report and doing this and thinking about the fabric of Beverly and how throughout my life, I was a baby of 5 and my mother was a single mother. And I remember sports being what it was. I remember as a little kid being like walking my birth certificate up to the Ralston Elementary School to play Little League Baseball, bringing it back, and the lady would say, we'll just bring it back if your mother signed it and come back with $5, you can play. And we just played, and all the people around this community, and the fabric of this community is what's beautiful. What makes the youth sports of this community is what really makes this community, I feel. There's so many volunteers and so many people have done such great things for the youth of this city, and I'm a perfect example of a man that played sports in Beverly, all the sports, and loved them, and was supported by so many people, so many volunteers that just gave of their time and energy. And it's really a blessing. And I brought my family back here to raise my family because of that, just because of the fabric of this city so strong. And I want to thank those people and those volunteers. It's really a wonderful thing. And then I'd like to get to a certain point in my life, and I was about 5th grade. 4th grade, I was over in Ralston, and I switched over to a school over in McKay Elementary, 4th, 5th grade. And I met this guy that came in. He was a teacher. He was a 22-year-old man. And he was a very important person in my life for many years, still to this day. And he really helped me a lot and helped me bring my mother and I, helped my mother a lot with me and my younger youth, and that's Skip Tobin, Skip and Robbie Tobin. They're just something special. Skip used to play sports with us after school. Always had time to play either baseball or we always played street hockey. Street hockey was a sport then, Bobby Orr, street hockey. But Skip was just something that was, I got 5 or 6 friends that for the last 50 years, or 40 years, have been having Christmas dinner with Skip Tobin at his house every Christmas. And those are guys that were all in that 5th grade elementary school class. And it's just an amazing tribute to him and his wife and who they are to the city. Talk about those unsung heroes in the city. The Tobins have done so much for so many youth and so many people in this city. It's amazing. And I just want to thank you and just publicly tell you how much I love you. And I want to thank you very much for everything you've given me. We really don't have time to go any further with that, and I'm just going to leave it at that, Skip and Robbie. We got a lot of stories, Skip. And now to simply go to why I'm in the Hall of Fame. Played sports my whole life, like I said. I remember as like a 13-year-old kid wearing baseball uniform down to Balch Playground to play baseball, and then bringing my T-shirt along and sneakers because I had a track meet at the high school, and then I had a rec basketball game at the Balch Playground. All in the same evening, I'd play 3 sports. And it was just what we did as little kids. We loved the ball, loved to play games. And I'd play those games, and it was just a tremendous enjoyment. And then when I was in junior high school, I missed my fall of the 7th grade year because there was no sports for 7th grade kids, and it killed me because I was too big to play Pop Warner football, and that fall killed me. So then they had basketball, and I did JV basketball. I tried out for, not a basketball player, but I tried out, and this crazy man, Jack Hilton, he got me on his team. And Jack Hilton, our relationship started that day, and it went on to now and on. Jack Hilton was my basketball coach, and then that spring, he became my track coach. And I used to be the worst guy. We used to have these like little meets, St. John's meets, and I was like 4th or 5th in the shot all the time, so I wanted to throw the disc so I'd be better at something. And I'd go stay after and just want to throw the disc, and Jack would throw with me way after he should. He was, time and time again, he'd just be out there in the field behind Memorial throwing disc with me, and they said, Bill, try the shot again. And I'd do both, and this and that, and this and that. And then I started excelling at the shot, and I started winning the shot, and I started getting really good at it. And then, within 2 years, I was doing AAU meets in the summertime, and then I won a state AAU meet, and then I went to, and it was like 14, 15 at the time, and then I went to up to Portland. I won another meet. So now I'm won the New England out of the Junior Olympics. And I go, Jack, what am I going to do now? And they give us a pamphlet, right? And it says I got to go to Lincoln, Nebraska to be in the Nationals. I'm saying, I don't know how. Where's Lincoln, Nebraska? But and my mother didn't have much money, but somehow Jack and Terry somehow figured out a way for me to go to the National Junior Olympics. And I was 15 years old at the time, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, competing with the best athletes in the world. I was kind of a knucklehead, and I had a lot of fun in my life. I had a very treasured life. I had a lot of fun. And I had some libations in my room after the competition was over. I was 15, but I was kind of a knucklehead. And I had, because I had my own room, I got all these athletes to come into my room and actually, because I had a little party in my room after the competition. I had the party, I threw the party, the kid from Boston threw the party. Surprise, surprise. But I remember being at that party and having this little black kid sitting next to me, great kid, hot shit, and his name was Joe Morris. And and then he had a friend of his that was this tall, thin black kid that was just tall and thin, real quiet, sat in the corner, didn't talk much. There was a bunch of other people. I remember Hillman, there was a discus throw for framing here, a bunch of other athletes. We had about 7 or 8 of us. And Joe Morris, who I just sat with, and he was just a regular guy, a kid, 50-year-old kid, went on to play for the New York Giants. He was a running back for the Giants. And that kid, his buddy, who was a sprinter jumper, was Carl Lewis, and he was just a regular guy. They were just 50-year-old kids that they were just in my room because we were National Junior Olympics. You know, it was 1977, you know, it was a lot of fun, and it was an experience I'll never forget. You know what I mean? I didn't even realize it at the time. No one did. We were all just kids just having fun, you know? And then years later, you go, geez, that was Joe Lewis. Short little black kid, funny as a son of a gun. What a great kid. Oh, he was better, because Carl was really kind of like, I remember Carl because he came with him, but he just kind of sat in the corner. He was kind of like real shy and kind of to himself. Well, so be it, you know? But after that, and after that, kind of my life as shot put and kind of continued on. But first, I'd like to get into the high school now. That's kind of the junior high part of my career, which I played basketball right up to that point too. I actually was starting 9th grade. I was gonna actually throw shot put in the high school my 9th grade year, and I'm glad I didn't, because a good dear friend of mine passed away, Peter Wynn, got really hurt that year. And we needed a big man for Memorial, because Memorial played Briscoe, and it was a big thing back then, a big rivalry. And Jack said to go play basketball, and TD, Tommy Donovan, said, Bill, you want to come play basketball for me? I need a big man. And I wasn't a great basketball player, but I was coachable, and I was an athlete, you know what I mean? And Tommy said, you come, Bill, I'll teach you how to box people out, and I'll teach you how to play the game. And I remember those presses and those zones, and it was a great experience, TD. It was an experience about basketball at another level. It was a lot taught in 1 year. Great experience. And then I went off to high school, and football started. And it was the fall of football my sophomore year. ran like the dickens that whole August to get my wind. Any advice to any athlete out there is before football season, forget about weight training, just get your wind. Wind is so much important. You can't get any stronger in the last month, but you can get your wind. And I went into double sessions, and I was doing pretty well, actually. I was doing pretty well, and I ended up being on second team defensive end, and then I was on kickoff and kickoff returns and special teams. And my father, who had kind of come back in my life at the time, made me a $5 bet that I wouldn't be on the field the very first day of my very first varsity game. And he said he came in and he saw me running down the field the very first kickoff. I was on the suicide squad. And he goes, "I lost the bet, Bill." And I said, "Yeah, you lost the bet, Dad." But from that point on, football is just a different sport. Football is probably my favorite sport of all the sports, even though track's brought me far. The sport's just a unique sport, and I love it. And there's nothing like it. But then within 2 weeks of running a 44 defense, people that know the game, they switched to a 53. And I was a second-string defensive end. They switched to a 53. And Nate Cunningham, like him or didn't like him, he was a fair man. And he had, anyone wants to play nose guard could play nose guard. And I said, "I'll try out. I want to start. I want to play." And they had nose guard. And he had all these seniors that were trying out for it, but I was a sophomore, but he let people play one-on-one and just see who won. And I beat them all, so I became the nose guard. And I was a nose guard for the next 3 years and never missed a Thanksgiving Day game and never missed another football game. And I played, had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun during that time period. I think that in coaching, you head coaches, I think I talked to Tommy, TD, and you, Mr. Bauer, and all you guys, the worst position coaching in the country, I think, is a varsity high school head coach. You know what I mean? You get the push from the parents that you got to let your kid play, but you got the push, you got to win. You know what I mean? And you got these guys that spent thousands of dollars on their kids to learn how to skate or go to AAU games, doing all this, and they end up in high school and they stink. You know what I mean? But you got to deal with the parents. You know what I mean? And you got to deal with the parents. You know what I mean? And it really is frustrating. You know what I mean? It's frustrating for a head coach. Worst position. Every other level of sports, you can either boot them out or you can play everyone and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? High school head coaches is the toughest position out there. I really think so, and I think you guys will agree with me. So I believe when Nate left, it was too bad he left, but I don't think he was made for high school football. He should have been a defensive back coach in college, probably. He was a very good defensive back. And then Billy Heyman came in, of course, and you just command respect, Mr. Heyman. I mean, that was just what it was. When Billy Heyman came in, he's a quiet man, but he just commanded respect. That's all. And Bill, this is how you give a forearm shiver. And it was funny because he'd be quiet, and then he'd get down on all fours and say, "Bill, you lift the guy up," and you know? He was really kind of a unique man, unique coach, and I loved him for it. Well, that was my high school career. I played I got to, by my junior year, I never really left the field. I mean, you guys understand it kind of athlete. I was on kickoff return, punt return. I mean, I played defense all the time, and I ran in plays as a fullback. So, I mean, from my junior and senior year, I never really left the football field when we started the game. Once I snapped the helmet on, it was pretty much snapped on, and I just played till the game was over, and it was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate Mr. Hamer for letting me play as much as I did. I enjoyed it immensely. Now to get to my track prowess, I threw the ball better than anyone else in the state for a couple of years there, and that's about it. I had a coach, Jack Hilton. I went to a lot of invitational meets. We used to go to invitational. I always used to play for the weekends, Jack, right? Play for the weekends. Because the Northeastern Conference, indoor and outdoor, I think we lost like 2 meets in 3 years, indoors and outdoors. You know what I mean? It was weird. Indoors, we just won them all. Outdoors, we just won it. We didn't lose. I mean, losing was, conference meets was just like, you're playing for the weekend. Conference is like practice. You know what I mean? Seriously, as a team, it was weird. But it's like, I can't imagine where it went. But we dominated. And they always started out with winning the shot and the disc, because we had 3 shot putters and 3 discus throws. We always started out with 18 points. That didn't hurt. And actually, that's one of the proudest moments I have, too, is that those 3 shot putters, me, Devin Buckley, and Bruce Haddon, still to this day hold the state all-class record in the shot put. Meaning 3 athletes in the same school, you take the best throw of those 3 athletes and you add them up in a meet, competing against all the other schools in the state, and we have a record. I think it's like 167-10 or something. That means I threw 58, the other guy threw 55, the other guy threw 54, and you add those throws up, and we still hold a state record for 40 years right now. And I don't know if anyone knows that, but that's reality. And regarding my own personal records, I've held the record since I don't know, 78, I guess, and still hold it, and that's the way it was. But we had a great weight team and a lot of great athletes. But I got to say one thing, is that, Mr. Jack Hilton, you are the finest, if not the finest, field events coach in the state of Massachusetts ever come out of this state. I've talked to John Norris, I've talked to 4 or 5 other coaches, and everyone says, oh, you're one of Jack's guys, you're one of Jack's guys. Jack, you are it. You were it. We always had a 6-foot high jump, 6'4" high jumper. Always had guys throwing a disc and shot. Every field event we always dominated, and it was because of you, Jack. I mean, it's amazing. And that's just the track aspect of it, Jack. And then the thing about Chris Bucknam. To speak a story about Chris Bucknam. I'll try to wrap this up quick. I'm sorry. Long-winded. I make a instead of a long story short, I make a short story long. But to wrap it up quick, I was coming out of high school, and I had all these accolades because I played football, and I was in track, and I was really good at it. And I had all these people like recruited me, but I had real poor grades in school because I was kind of a knucklehead. But I had good SAT scores, so I had to go to prep school for a year locally to go to one of the local schools to play football and/or track. You know, I mean, either or. I was recruited on both sports. And then he talked to Chris Bucknam, who was out at University of Northern Iowa at the time, talking about Chris Bucknam. 73. He was out at the University of Northern Iowa at the time. He was an assistant coach out there. And he came and talked to me and recruited me. And the rest is history. I thought it was crazy. I said, I'm not going to Iowa. And he goes, and then my mother says, Bill, it's time to get out of town. You know what I mean? Time to leave Dodge. You know what I mean? And she was right. I mean, Mother, I thought she was crazy. As Mark Twain said, you know, he thought you were crazy. Then I came back 4 years later, and you were surprised at how much you learned. You know what I mean? It was one of those things. I came back 4 years later, and my life was changed. But Jack Hilton is the reason I got a college education, because he went to Chris Bucknam and said, give this kid a chance. And when you go to that kind of Division I AA school, you get the chance, and they force feed you the education. It's wicked cool. If you're an athlete, and that's what's great about it, they sit you down in the afternoon, literally, all the athletes that are like myself, they sit you down with a person that's getting paid to tutor you on every one of your classes. They can't take any tests for you, they can't do anything for you, but they force feed you the education. So a lot of these young athletes that come to the schools that are underprivileged, those athletic scholarships have a value if they use them right. You know what I mean? You'll get an education. You know what I mean? They'll force feed you education, and it's wonderful. And I got an education. And most importantly, and the best thing in my life, I met my wife there, who I've been married to for 35 years. I have 3 beautiful children, 2 grandchildren. And Jack, it's because of you, making that call, Chris Bucknam, that I met that woman, and I have that beautiful family sitting there with grandchildren. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, the next inductee, Brian Norris, class of 1982. Page 11 for more info about Brian. So as a junior, Brian was undefeated in one of the 1,000-yard dual meets, won the Class A Massachusetts Track Championship in the 800-meter race, and set a long-standing junior class record. In Brian's senior season, he was undefeated in all races and was the NEC champion for the 1,000-yard run. Additionally, he was invited to the prestigious Glenn D. Laux Invitation, where he set the all-time 800-meter BHS record, which still stands today, and he was part of the BH record-setting 4x800 relay team, which still stands today as well.
Thank you, Bernie. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much. It's great to be here tonight and to see so many faces, familiar faces. I'm so happy to have so many friends and family here tonight. I wanted to share just a few congratulatory notes that I received from my friends last week. The first one, congratulations, Brian. So you were on the Hall of Fame selection committee, I assume. No, Gerard, I was not. Thank you very much. Great news, Brian. It's great that soccer and track are now considered sports. Tim Huff, right back there. Coach Leahy, Coach Cahill, you can go school him a little bit on the finer points of the most popular game in the world, right? I ran into an old soccer teammate a few years ago, and he said, so I heard you're going into the Hall of Fame. I said, yeah. He said, that's great, but not for soccer, right? I said, Obviously not. Todd will nod his head on that, I'm sure. Right, Todd? I'm here for what I did on the track, and track has given back a lot to me, more than I can count, more than just memories. My family here today that sustains me, that sprang from my involvement in track 40 years ago. I've taught high school for 30 years, and I don't think I would have gone into teaching in the first place if it weren't for the coaches that I had who mentored me along the way. And in a way, the first coach that I had was my brother John, who's out back there. Coach John Norris, you all know him. It's such a track-heavy crowd, I know I don't have to explain. He's been the Danvers High coach for 30 years, Boston Globe Coach of the Year. But when he was running around just out of diapers, he was the oldest of the four of us on Palmer Road. And back then, you know, you've heard these boomer tales. We didn't come home till the lights were out. All parents were free-range parents, right? Well, our parents were especially free-range parents. I mean, they just wanted us out of the house, gone. They knew we were running around with all our friends. They were okay with that as long as we came back eventually. And, you know, they had 4 kids, 2 of them completely spastic, hyperactive, you know, boys, right? And 2 more, I would say, more responsible. My sister Judy, who's here, who's a teacher, who's the organizer to this day, and my sister Lisa, who became a psychiatric nurse practitioner. She had a lot of good material to work with back in the day, let's say, right? So, you know, for the sanity of all, we were encouraged to just roam and run, and some friends here today, Tim Huff, Mo Finn, Kelly LeCompte, who was, I think, might have been the first person inducted to this Hall of Fame many years ago, and Ron St. Pierre. My parents were Irish immigrants, and they appreciated everything that America had to offer, and they encouraged us to get involved in everything, anything, soccer, track, baseball, and we did, and we followed my brother's lead. I followed my brother's lead into a lot of things. You might remember the St. John's Evangelist Beverly track meet that they had every year down the high school, and that was where most of us were introduced to track. And for us, it was a huge deal, you know, to run against kids you didn't even know, you know, with different T-shirts on, right? And I remember my brother saying to me then, and along the way, that he thought distance runners had to be a little bit soft in the head, you know, and he thought that I had what it takes. So I always took that as a compliment. Thank you, John. So somehow I've hit the jackpot with the coaches that I've had along the way. You know, Ron St. Pierre's father, Ron Sr., I see Todd here, some of the other soccer coaches, Paul Bradley. Those were the people in the early days who built Beverly soccer from the ground up. And I also was lucky enough to play for the guy who started it all, Bill Foley. I'm saddened at his recent passing, and my condolences to all of you. I just want to say a few words about him. When you were a player, Coach Foley was not an introvert. When he walked onto the field, you just knew it. Like, there was a presence about him, you knew it, and you knew you had to be ready. You had to be ready to go. He was high energy, he was passionate, he was caring, he was very confident, and he was really tough, you know. I'm thinking, am I going to call him Buzzer? Am I going to call him Buzzer? I'm like, no, I would never call him Buzzer, you know, like Coach Foley to me. But he was a lot of fun to play for, too. Like, he had this playfulness and a very wry smile that always came through. I was lucky to play for him, and he's going to be greatly missed. He was a phenomenal coach. Coaches can be mentors, and Jack Hilton, as you've heard from Bill Shea, was certainly that. Jack wasn't a guy who just showed up to coach the kids. He was there to mentor the kids at a very deep level. He was, as you've heard, one of the best field events coaches in New England, but he was also one of the best running coaches around. Jack did more to help me than I can possibly convey. He drove me up to different colleges to look around, to meet the coaches, and drove me up to Waterville, Maine. He just had a sense for what was a good fit for someone, you know, a nice small college, and it was great place. Drove me up to Waterville, Maine to meet the coach, Jim Westcott. And then that was on his day off. And then like a week later, he drove back with my father to take him through the financial aid process, you know? I mean, who does that, you know? Well, Jack does that. And I was one of many, many kids who Jack did that for, you know? So, yeah. My late parents, myself, my family, we've always loved and trusted Jack. He's one of a kind, and none of this happens by accident, because if it weren't for Terry, there wouldn't be a Jack. Thank you, Terry. My family had a lot of fun a few years back cheering on Coach John's son. There's been a few Norrises in the track fold over the years. Brendan was a grade 800-meter runner, and he ran a time that is so close to the record, it might as well be the record. You know, the record is 155.8. Sorry to bore you, but I know there's so many trackies here tonight, you can hang in there. Brendan ran 156.2, 0.4 of a second slower. That is less time than it takes to sneeze. I've actually timed that. Brendan holds the 600-meter record to this day and went on to run for Dartmouth. He's doing just fine for himself. The only reason he's not up here is because he's too young. So there. So I'll wrap up with a few things that I've learned along the way, just memories that flash into my mind. Number one, celebrate effort. We had a kid on our team who had a medical condition which made movement and running extremely difficult. He was a 2-miler and always put in this effort that you wouldn't believe. Kids understood that we were witnessing something special, and I remember kids ringed around the track watching this guy, cheering this guy on. He just wouldn't quit. This kid was fierce, and I'll never forget him. Number two, have a strategy. My brother, Jack, they gave me a lot of good advice over the years, some of which I can actually repeat. But I was told to break the race. Paul Smith and some of you middle distance guys will relate to this. I was told to break the race into 4 quarters. Let the adrenaline carry you through the first quarter. Settle in, focus, and relax on good form for the second quarter. Push hard for the third quarter, because this is when your mind and your emotions tell you to slow down and take it easy. But that's the time to push. And then let it all out in the fourth quarter. It hurts, but you'll get used to it. Third, let injuries fuel motivation. You know, all athletes face injuries, and I have a pretty rich history. Dislocated my knee at soccer camp before double sessions in my senior year. After surgery, I was in a cast for 6 weeks, and I couldn't play all season. But I had Todd, Coach Foley, Jack, all these guys to just reassure me, and I wasn't worried. You know, I wasn't worried. You'll get back, you'll do it. Might be next month, might be the month after. Keep plugging. And I was able to get back to form and compete and do well enough indoors to compete in spring track. What we didn't anticipate, you know, there are always these things that come up that you don't expect. Think of COVID a few years ago with Coach Jellison's team and Dunleavy's team. They had to pull the plug on some great relays that they were taking to the Nationals, I believe. What happened to us? Proposition 2.5 passed, and they canceled the state meets. They canceled the class meet, and they canceled the all-state meet. Luckily, Jack Hilton had a plan like way before that. He took us out of state and took kids who qualified to White Plains, New York, which was a great track meet with a lot of fantastic athletes. And that's where I ran my best time. Wouldn't have happened if that hadn't been planned, because the coaches put in the effort to do it, right? So finally, I'll wrap up. Finally, just have fun and appreciate the people along the way. I think of the origins of track for myself and some of the people I got to know. Track meets provide a lot of downtime, so you can get to know athletes on other teams. I was not a high jumper at the time, but I spent a fair amount of time around the high jump area. There was a certain girl who's here tonight who happened to be really good at the high jump, right? She had the record for years, and she still has the mile relay record. It's still up there. And so I had no clue at the time that the traits that I was gravitating towards the high jump for, mostly Marcy's beauty, athleticism, her tenacity, intelligence, that ended up, so I married a trackie, long story short, right? Married a trackie. That would also make her the best wife and mom that I could have hoped for. So I'm lucky to have Marcy's mom, Alice, Marcy's dad, Bernie, here tonight. And as an added bonus, we got these two incredible kids, Cara and Dan, intelligent, hardworking, and kind. And so track has given me more than I could have possibly imagined, and to be able to just share a little bit of that with you guys here tonight has been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So next inductee, Jay Monroe, class of 2003. To learn more about Jay, please go to page 10. So Jay, a multi-sport athlete who excelled at baseball, basketball, track, and especially football. For football, Jay has a laundry list of accomplishments in 2002 alone as a bruising running back and defensive standout, including elected team captain, won the recipient of the Daniel McLean Trophy for Thanksgiving Day performance, and NEC All-Star, and also played in the All-Star game. So, Jay.
Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be here with each of the inductees, Coach Bauer and Patrick Bailey, two of my dad's favorite Beverly football legends. I'd like to thank my Uncle Scott and my cousin Neil for traveling here from Georgia to be with us here tonight, and thank Bruce and the committee for such a great honor. To my family for all their love and support over the years, and my teammates, many of whom are very good friends, and also the coaches that are here tonight. This means more to me than any worldly accomplishment. I remember when I was young, feeling like I had something great to aspire to. That football was the way I knew I could be part of this city. And it was only 20 years ago, but I remember growing up, driving downtown, and the character of Beverly was so special. I wondered how I could be part of it all. Then I found out I was, and football was the reason why. I had Coach Roger Ozinski as a gym teacher in second grade, and I wasn't very athletic. It wasn't the Patriots we looked up to then, it was the high school players. And my friends and I played sports every day, all day. A different sport every season, aspiring to be like them. Chris Melanson and Nick Langoni are here with me tonight. I was a small, chubby kid telling everybody that I was going to be Beverly's next big running back. But I earned the name Cheeseburger for the habit of coming in last in laps and eating too much before practice. I think most of my teammates would remember me by that name more than Jay, and they probably also would find it as amazing as I do that I'm here, and somewhat amusing. Every day you get to play football is a good day. Apart from the joy of playing, what I remember most was the tradition surrounding the game. Feeling like the city's history was opened for us as young people, and that it had a timelessness to it. Traditions like bridging the gap, my senior year, and playing in my first Beverly-Salem game as a 15-year-old sophomore are the football memories that I cherish most. That first varsity year was so special because I got a taste of what Beverly tradition had been about for the years before. But even more than that, the memories I love most are about the people, and some of them have little to do with sports. They made being a part of something greater than yourself and aspiring to something great feel like a good thing. This is an opportunity to remember them. John Boyle's discipline, telling us Beverly needed us to grow up at Briscoe Middle School and teaching us we lived in a special place by inviting the lieutenant governor to the assembly every year. Tom Donovan's baseball camps, Todd Lambert making our jackets for us, and Flaherty making you feel like the whole city both had high expectations of you and was encouraging you somehow, while she taped your ankles and didn't say much at all. Kristen Capuccio and Pete Frades, who are no longer with us but lived lives to remember. Bill Hamer, who my mom told me to be like before I even ever met him, and modeled what it means to be, for football to be a sport and more than a sport by showing us what a good man is like. Red Hutt's whispered comments on the sidelines during the game, this is against Winthrop, that motivated me more than any time in my football career to play my best. And when I worked with him as an intern in the athletic office, how he'd always tell me how Beverly sets the standard as the greatest athletic program in the NEC year in and year out because of our emphasis on women's sports winning the most championships. My mother walking the sidelines of every freshman game, anxious for when I'd touch the ball next, with a guy we'd met there who later became a friend of our family named Mel DeVoe. And they're always finding the best of my efforts. My dad for always expecting the best of me, for going in the weight room with me in 7th grade to push me. They didn't just talk about devotion and about being great is about committing to things greater than themselves. They lived devoted to us, serving us as student athletes, and showed it. That greatness meant Beverly was not a place, not all about what we say about ourselves, but what we do for others. And that was the kind of greatness as young men they did not only encourage, but they expected. They prepared me for my playing career at Endicott, where being able to apply myself in a way that gave me respect to everyone made me a leader throughout my college years. I remember looking into the stands that I was a part of something that represented where I was from, and everybody cared about it in a way that I didn't fully deserve. The feeling that when game day started, I should give everything I had. Not only for my own name, but because I stood on the shoulders of generations before me, playing a team, standing on the shoulders of generations before them. It felt like everybody cared. I felt the tradition. My dad and my grandfather having been captains of Salem, and my grandfather, Arthur Monroe, told me he'd wear the black and orange for exactly 4 years and only 4 years. I gave a lot to the game of football. I'm not proud of what I did to do with the violence of the game, but it gave me much more than it took. It gave me a trajectory as a man that it would have been impossible otherwise. That there was a way to live life that acknowledged the things that do not change. That was a feeling those around me encouraged and inspired. It was about expectations. Mel visited me when I was doing an internship as a chaplain in Beverly Hospital. He brought me Dunkin' Donuts coffee and an oat bran muffin. He told me about writing letters to every president for several decades about his hopes for the country. I love that he felt like that was an important and necessary thing to do. He sat with me and talked about who donated the hospital, the Peabody family, and how he worked for them as a young man. He wanted me to know the reason why I can try to do something great is because I come from somewhere great. That I could go out and try because what made Beverly great was something that would outlive me. That I was small enough to make a difference. It was all the small conversations and what they wouldn't say about themselves and the good that they loved that as a 37-year-old I still remember and cherish most. Now I see the next generation making traditions, like Dominic Lorenzano at BevCam, Tim Flaherty at the YMCA, Frank Forty Field. Communicating to the next generation, there are people who care, that want to show the kids in the area they can be part of something special. I'm honored to be part of something like the Beverly High Hall of Fame because I feel like it brings me closer to them somehow. I hope our kids are still playing outside, and I hope someone's teaching them about the things that do not change. I know that's what I got, and I will always be grateful for it. Now that I have 2 little boys and a little girl, I know I'm trying. And as with football and youth sports, making the effort is half the battle. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, next up, Coach Kevin Leahy, boys soccer. Page 9 of the program. Coach Leahy led the boys soccer team for over 17 years. One of his best coaching seasons was from a team who was expected to finish towards the bottom of the NEC, only to go 15-1-2 during the regular season and chalked up 3 straight tournament wins. He earned top honors for Eastern Mass Coach of the Year, NEC Sportsmanship, Salem News Boys Coach of the Year, and a number of MIAA tournament wins. Kevin.
Great looking out here at the legends, and I'm not going to name them because there's so many out here, and we'd be here all night. So I don't know if you guys anybody ever saw Mike Krzyzewski when he did a segment on CBS Sunday morning called "Note to Myself," and he talked to his 14-year-old self. So I'm going to use that format, and I'm going to try to convey a little bit of what I feel about Beverly and coaching. And so here goes. Dear younger Kevin, you will hurt your knee falling off a ladder painting a neighbor's house during your freshman football season. At Salem High School, by the way. While sitting injured in the stands at Bertram Field watching Jeff Monroe and the rest of the guys carrying on, I noticed there was a group of kids out in the practice field, and they were playing this game that I had never seen before, and it looked like a lot of fun. So I convinced my best friend, Paul Lavoie, who was also injured, and we decided that we would go out for soccer next year. So we bought a book called How to Play Soccer, and it was written by an Italian. Shout out to my friend Kango, who loves the Italian national team. How to play soccer. So we spent the summer in front of my house on a little sand lot with the book and learning how to play. So we tried to learn how to play the game. We went out for the team. We both made the team, and to our surprise, we both started sophomore year. He was a sophomore. I was a sophomore. He was a junior. John Oconee was the new coach in Salem at the time. And John, by the way, and I consider one of the godfathers of soccer on the North Shore. He was a great coach and gave me a love for the game that I still have to this day. So Coach Oconee also got me involved in Salem youth soccer. And I started coaching a U16 team. I was the assistant coach and fell in love with coaching. I really enjoyed the coaching with the young kids. Actually, they weren't that young. They were a couple of years younger than me. But that was my first coaching job, and one that like I said, I really enjoyed. So I went off to college. I went to Suffolk University, and I used to play a lot of basketball at Salem State. And I met this beautiful girl named Bernadette, and who was a much better athlete than I ever was. She was an outstanding athlete at Salem, and she changed my life, not just then, but up to this very day. We have 3 tremendous kids. 2 just left because they're playing music tonight, and they had to be there. So she'll end up being the coach of your family, and she will, and she'll never be allowed to retire. My younger sister, your younger sister Ellen, will show her grit and courage by delivering a baby boy named Ryan, who will become one of the great significant relationships in my life. She and her son Ryan will be the reason that I get back into coaching. He will play literally every sport, and I mean every sport, all the way, and I coached pretty much every one of those teams. Even though he understood sports way better than I did and was smarter about sports than I will ever be. You become an assistant coach at Beverly High School, where you ended up meeting friends and colleagues that become your friends for 28 years and still going to this day. I met Steve Sheriff, who was the head coach, and I ended up being his assistant coach. And Steve Sheriff is the other godfather of soccer on the North Shore. John Oconee gave me the love of the game. Steve taught me how to coach the game. And he taught me so much about the game. Steve, if you've ever met him, was a picture of sartorial splendor, always dressed. He looked like Phil Jackson or Pat Riley on the sidelines. I looked like a disheveled Bill Belichick. Still do. So he retired, and over my objections, he retires. I got the head coaching job, and you will be scared stiff. You'll work hard to make yourself a better coach, and you will be amazed at the great people who will take time out of their lives to help you on this journey and coach with you. Guys like Rich Bassett, who coached freshmen and was a great introduction to high school sports for many, many kids. Kevin Friel from Donegal, Ireland, who turned my whole family into rabid Manchester United fans, and who left and is coaching to this very day for the New England Revolution. Kevin Haratunian, who left me and worked with Mike Cahill for many years, and now he's running the town of Topsfield, and then, most importantly, I met this guy, high energy guy. He was, in any honors that I received over the years of coaching, I share with this guy, Doug Vigliotta, and I'm sure many of you know him. He's in the Hall of Fame. And he really, really helped me, like I said, and everything I have, I share with him. Other great people that helped me along the way, ADs like Bill Hamer, Red Hut, James Coffey, Dan Keefe, team managers, bus drivers, some referees. I'd like to shout out Mike Rollins, who is one of stalwarts of Beverly sports and takes pictures for all teams, and just a great guy. And I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention Billy George, who just retired at Beverly High, who would do anything for any coach, and every coach here knows that. So, along the way, you'll lose your mom and dad, but they gave me everything, pushed me, and worked extra jobs so I could play sports and go on to college. I'll also lose my sister, Anne Marie, whose legacy of family first still beats through the heart of her daughter, Jackie, and our extended family. When people ask me about my favorite memories of coaching over the years, it's not even it's a very quick decision. It was being across the field from my daughter Bridget for 4 years as she played for Beverly High. And I remember when she was a freshman, I said I would quit coaching and so I could go watch her play. And she said, "You can't do that, Dad. You're the coach." And so she didn't let me retire. So, and then being able to coach both my sons, Connor and Sean, who were very proud, tough, talented soccer players for Beverly High. And then I'll be moved for all the love of the game that continues to this very day. My kids love soccer to this very day. You will remember not so much the wins and losses or the great seasons or the tough seasons. You'll stick with you till this very moment. The great kids that I got to work with. And I don't want to mention any names because we'd be here forever and I wouldn't want to forget somebody. So we had great times. Mainly, I remember practices where we worked hard. We joked around. We always had fun. And then soccer will become a big part of your life. It will give you gifts way beyond your coaching career and way more than you could ever give back to the game. But make sure you try. Be thankful for the life that you've been given and all the great people that you've met along the way. And I will leave you with this, Kevin. You will find later in life, much to your surprise, that even though you started out a proud witch from Salem, you ended up becoming a prouder Panther from BHS. Thank you.
right, thank you, Kevin. Okay, the next inductee, Pat Bailey, class of 2007. Page 5 of your programs, please. Coach Bauer said it best when he was quoted as saying, "Pound for pound, Pat was one of the toughest players I have ever been around at any level." And I think we all know Coach Bauer has seen some great players in his day. Pat is the school's all-time leader in rushing yards, touchdowns, total points, and 275 yards rushing in a single game performance. Pat was two-time MVP and two-time NEC Player of the Year in football. And then there was lacrosse, also where he was a two-time All-Star on top of everything as a midfielder. So Pat, come on up, please.
Good evening. First off, I want to say congratulations to all my fellow inductees tonight. I'm honored and humbled to be recognized alongside you tonight. Second, I want to thank the Hall of Fame committee for putting on this event. I know it's probably been a stressful few years, rescheduling and the such, but thank you for persevering, and I know we're all very happy to be here tonight. I just recently moved back to the North Shore, spending the past decade or so in other parts of the country. But while I was gone, I was lucky to get back to Beverly as often as I could. And I always looked forward to it. I cherished that time, and I was always glad to be back. I know not everyone feels that way about their hometown. Some people leave their hometown and never want to go back, but I'm very grateful that I've got a place like Beverly, Massachusetts in my life. In the community of Beverly, there's a few specific groups that I want to recognize. The first of which is the Beverly community at large. It's a community growing up that I know supported its students, it supported its athletes. It's a community that shows up to the football games on Saturday afternoons and other sporting events as well. And for that, I'm very thankful. Next, I want to recognize the coaches I've had along the way. Pop Warner up through the high school, I had some great coaches, some great leaders, some very knowledgeable coaches. Obviously, Coach Bauer sitting here tonight, Hall of Fame coach. I'm very thankful to have him leading the way for us in high school and his staff as well. I see a few faces that I saw or who were my coaches along the way as well. I know not everyone has that as a player, so for that I'm very thankful. Next, I want to recognize my teammates that I played with. I played with some great athletes. I played with some guys who were more than athletes, they were just better individuals. And some of them are sitting here tonight, and I'm thankful that they could make it here as well. I think if you were to ask them about our playing career together, what they would tell you is that they did all the hard work up front, all the grunt work. I sort of pranced down the field and took all the credit. And that's pretty accurate, honestly. So I'm very appreciative of those guys, and they're some of my best friends still today. Lastly, I want to recognize my family. My mom, my dad, my sisters would be at my games cheering on me and my teammates along the way. Always there, traveling to wherever it needed to be. So I'm thankful for that. And even when my junior year I decided to switch from baseball to lacrosse, which turned out was not a universally popular decision, they were there to back me up as well. So in summary, I'm very humbled to have my name on the inductee list tonight, but it's not reflective of the efforts of an individual. It's really more reflective of a supportive community, some great coaches, some phenomenal teammates, and a loving family at home. So for that, I'm thankful. Thanks.
Okay. Next up, following Pat, is Coach Bauer, football coach. And page 6, please. Coach Bauer was the 22nd football coach in BHS history and is the second winningest coach of all time with 89 wins, where he led the Panthers from 2003 to 2015. He won 2 Super Bowls, Division III in 2010, and an amazing come-from-behind win in 2012 for the Division IIA crown and securing the perfect season. He was an impressive 11-2 versus Salem on top of all those accomplishments as well. So, Coach, please come up. Hey, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Brian. Thank you. Well, I don't think I'll top Pat's speech because he spoke from the heart. Sean Gallagher said there's no way you're going to top that. Mark Thomas is timing me right now, so when that Oscar music hits, then I know it's time to leave. But frankly, it is a huge honor, very humbled to be standing here. And Pat, you couldn't have said it better because it's not one person at all that leads to any success. There are many, many, many people that put it together that allow a group to have success. And Beverly is an outstanding place to be. It's wonderful. I do want to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I do also want to thank them for putting in a great picture of me, right? At least 50 pounds with much more hair, less wrinkles. That was the before picture, right? But I want to say thank you and very humbled and appreciate that very much. Also, I want to congratulate the other inductees tonight, too. And there's so many paths that cross over. And I know Mr. Foley's not here, but he was just an outstanding principal to our children. Treated them great through Centerville Elementary, just a great mentor. Coach Leahy, outstanding teacher, developed Irish studies, which allowed him to have a great time. But an awesome coach and just a true mentor. And Mr. Shea over there, I don't know if you know this, but he holds the sticks at the home games for us. So we had some codes going on. If they were close, he would give me the signals, and I'd be watching him. But it was great to have him, and awesome. Great family, too. And your sons, Parker and Josh, played for us, and just wonderful, wonderful family. And Jay, I did not have the pleasure of coaching you. I wish I did. But we are connected with our family. And I'll talk about your father in a little bit, but I know how proud he is of you, and congratulations to this wonderful honor for you. And Kelly, you know, I think you could have played outside linebacker or corner for us too. Tough pound for pound. So just congratulations to all the recipients tonight. I do want to take a moment just to think about those who aren't here tonight that made an influence and impacted at least my transition to Beverly. Frank Forty, Red Hutt, and Ben Goodhue, Doug Chernovitz, just great people that aren't here today, but did impact us in many, many different ways. Also want to give a shout out to my father, Dan Bauer Sr., who is in St. Louis and excited for this tonight. He would come out to Thanksgiving Day games, and he loved it. We didn't have Thanksgiving in Missouri, and Jeff Monroe would bring in all the Thanksgiving Day food before the game. He'd probably spill egg yolks on half my game plans, but nonetheless, he had a great time, and thank you for that. I also want to thank my lovely wife, Bethany, who I love to embarrass at all these dinners, but without her support, and my son, Zach, and Mackenzie, just blessed. Being the family of a coach, really it's like two families, being the family of your team, but also the family at home, and I probably spent way more time with the team. I loved every minute, but Bethany, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you. And as I said, moving here from out of the area and just fitting in, there's so many people that helped make that transition so much easier for me. Todd sitting right in front, he set me straight a number of times. I would go into the office and the shop to order some gear, and he'd pull me aside and would give me great advice for sure. The boosters, outstanding support for our football team, and the Nortons are over there, and it's great to see Kathy and the work that you did, and just the great Norton family. Jay played for us too, and he's got a nice family, so it's great to see. Pat, I could probably tell a million stories about your team and your group, and you're right, they busted their you-know-what for you so you could run all these yards, but I could think of two stories. One, he had a lot of yards because on 3rd and long, we'd say, 28 toss, 27 toss, just give it to Pat, and he'd turn up and he'd be gone. The 275 yards against Saugus, we made a new play called Power 64. What does that mean? Well, we found number 64, we ran power to his side, he'd moved to the left, ran to that side, and before you know it, 64 was out of the game, and Pat had 275 yards in snow because he had these little feet that could really make it through there. So, he also was responsible for the Marblehead kicker in the second half to come out on crutches because in the first half, Pat returned 3 kicks for touchdowns, and mysteriously the kicker was out. I said I wouldn't tell that story, but that's nonetheless. And it is great to see his teammates, too, and to see Nikki Tanzella, Nikki Trakoff. It's awesome. And I'm really showing my age because I talked to J. Michael Nardella, and he has an older brother, Anthony, who played for me in 2003. So I spent 5 minutes talking to J. Michael as Anthony. So I was like, thank you. But J. Michael, pound for pound, he was the lead blocker for Pat. So anyway, that was all good stuff. And thank you, Sean, for having the water because I'm getting dry right now. But again, this wouldn't have happened without the great success and the great teamwork all across the board. Blessed tonight to have people here tonight to support. Sean Gallagher was the principal at Beverly High School for those years. We started as assistant principals, 2006, and Sean led the way, had high expectations, and worked with our student athletes, and really set the tone in the school. 2 stories that are favorite of mine. Number 1 is he ran the weight room for, sorry. It's probably funnier for me than you. But he ran the weight room in our first year, right? So he ran it tough. He had rules. And if players didn't live up to expectations, he would kick them out. So one time I'm coming out of practice, going to the weight room, and I see Pat Bailey out of the weight room. I'm like, why is Pat out of the weight room? And Sean said, well, you can't put ice on anything. You're out of the weight room. I'm like, how could you kick the best player out? And he's like, doesn't matter. He's got to live up to those expectations. So I knew he meant business. The other time was when we beat Gloucester, if you remember that. On the 1-inch line, we held them. They had an extra down, and it was a heck of a game. And thank God we didn't have social media in those days to tape Mr. Gallagher on the bus as he was. Okay, I'll change that. I didn't say that. And also Jim Coffey. We'll change the subject. Jim Coffey's here from Freeport, Maine, but was our athletic director during those years and really did an outstanding job supporting our teams. I got him in a lot of trouble because if I needed to order equipment, I just would order it, and he'd have to make excuses to Mr. Gallagher why I ordered this equipment, such as the new jerseys we had in 2012. But thank you for being here for that. Football really is the ultimate team sport, and so many people, as I said earlier, paved the way for success. But one thing I'm really proud of is the fact that we had a program. And it wasn't something that we would just show up in August and then turn in the equipment in November. It was a year-round endeavor. We had an outstanding lifting program. We went to clinics. We studied. We tweaked our offense and defense. We developed our younger players. We created camps. We had a transitional program for freshmen. We did everything we could to keep our players in town from going to the other schools, and we worked really, really hard at it. We set a high standard, and our players rose to that standard. We were blessed with many great players, tough kids that were awesome sportsmen. They really were very, very much, I think, a great product of their families in the town of Beverly. So I couldn't be prouder to be their coach, and I know that, just a blessing, and I know my coaches, which I'll talk about in a second, all feel the same way. Again, we had some outstanding coaches, all role models, educators, leaders, making a difference in our players' lives. Very blessed. One gentleman's not here tonight. His name is Dave Wilbur, and he actually is the reason why I wound up in Beverly. He called me and said, Dan, the job is open. And I went down to interview with a guy named John Lyons, and lo and behold, the outsider from Wakefield got the job. But I'm blessed. He's at Aruba tonight, having a good time. Jeff Hutton is over there. He is now our head coach of the high school team. He was our line coach, and I couldn't be prouder to have him reach the success as the head coach. I know he's going to turn the program around, and I'm very, very proud of him, and thank you very much. Coach Mark Thomas is sitting next to him and really was my right-hand person. He was in the high school dealing with a lot of things and really just an outstanding leader, and will become the next principal at Beverly High School. So you can see the leadership right there. John Longley, which I'm very glad to see tonight, was on my first staff early on with me, and then also became my boss as the athletic director at Beverly High School, and now he's the athletic director at Norwood High School. Thank you for being here. And then Roger Day, who came aboard in 2010 from Danvers. We changed everything offensively from a spread, which everybody's out there, which you see today, to a wing T. Now, Beverly's a running town. Beverly runs the ball. They have tough, hard-nosed running backs. They have great linemen. And Roger paved the way for the first Super Bowl in the first year. We transitioned everything. So ton of credit to Roger for that leadership. And again, the second Super Bowl and also setting the standard. And I'm glad he's here tonight. So I just want to say thank you to all those great coaches that we've had. And we have two great community members that were on our coaching staff too. Bruce Doig really did a lot of back work for us in terms of summer camps, the 8th grade lifting program, and he gave his all to our program. And his son Nick played for us, and Bruce was just a great mainstay. He was with us all throughout the week and on game days, and I felt good to have the biggest guy in Beverly stand behind me. I always felt very safe. Thank you, Bruce, for that. And I have to say a special thank you to Jeff Monroe. And you heard his son earlier so eloquently talk about the value of Beverly history of football and such, but Jeff really made a huge difference making the community connections. He was one of the first people I met with when I got the job in Beverly, went over to his house, learned about the youth program, how can we integrate and create more excitement. He was a mentor to many players, and I know there are a few players that may not have made it through high school, and he's responsible for that. He was always with us, so thank you very much, Jeff, to you and your lovely family. There are a few other coaches that weren't able to make it tonight. Anthony Nardella, who I thought was you, Jay, I'm sorry. He's back at the high school. Jack Jones, great line coach for us, Art Erzik, and obviously Ben Goodhue. Made some really great impressions on all of us and the great coaches. Many memories. I don't want to go back through like what are the top memories and the top games. Obviously, the Super Bowls were outstanding experiences. That Gloucester game where we held them on the inch line with the extra play down that they got, and I think that group still debates who made the tackle between Mock and Very. They're not sure. They're fighting back and forth, but it was one of the great games. And we did have a great, sorry, Sean, 11-2 versus Salem over the time. So that was always one of our goals. Sean's a Salem guy, so I couldn't resist that one more time. So, right. Anyway, that was one thing that was said to me when I received the opportunity to be the head coach. Make sure you take care of the players and beat Salem. And I thought we did a great job with that. So, he said. But I have to say, in retrospect, again, too many memories and too many great players and opportunities that we had at Beverly. Blessed to be part of the community, blessed that welcomed in, and just a great supporting group. And I know that the program, as we left it, was at a high level and will be at a high level as Jeff continues on with success, moving it forward, and just very proud to be part of the community of Beverly. Thank you to the Hall of Fame committee, and also congratulations to the recipients. I hope everyone has a great night. Thank you.
Sean's team, you crushed us. I won't say it. I did. It's 36. Oh my God, was that? Okay, so we're in the stretch run. We have one more inductee, and then we have a great team to honor this evening. So for the next inductee, Kelly O'Connor, class of 2009. Please see page 12. Kelly was an outstanding three-sport athlete in cross-country, swimming, and spring track. Kelly's long list of accomplishments include 2-year cross-country captain, and in swimming, Kelly placed first in the 200-yard IM state championship meet. Also, Kelly has been an NEC Salem News All-Star for 4 straight years in spring track, and in her senior season, she was recognized by the Boston Globe as an all-scholastic athlete and recognized as a BHS Student Athlete of the Year. Kelly, come on up, please. Congratulations. Of course, yeah.
Thanks.
Wait, is that gonna work?
Yeah, I'll be good.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. I wanted to thank the committee for this incredible and meaningful recognition. I'm proud to be standing here tonight, and Coach Jellerson, who I had the pleasure to run for 4 years. I wanted to congratulate all the other inductees. I'm honored to be standing here with all of you this evening. Nothing in life would be possible without a support system, so I feel it necessary to thank those who supported me in athletics and in life. My mom, who came to all the meets, all the practice pickups from cross country to swim practice daily, before school, after school, driving 6 hours to come to college meets. Without your support, I wouldn't have been as successful as I was, and I would not be the person I am today. For my family and friends for cheering me on, coming to watch, supporting my mom and my sisters, always still to this day are my biggest cheerleaders, now in other aspects of life, but still so important. And to my coaches for pushing me outside my limits to become better, support me doing 2 sports simultaneously, making my goals possible. Both cross country and swimming taught me so much, that I have taken into my career, life, and most importantly now, motherhood. I wrote this part of my speech as if my 2 daughters were sitting here in the room. As a woman in sports and a mother of 2 young girls, receiving this award makes me reflect on what the importance of it is. And yes, my accolades are why I'm up here today. But what I would want my daughters and any other young girls to take from this honor is the importance of going after their goals and aspirations, whether they be athletic or not. The importance of being brave, strong, believing in themselves, and knowing their worth, and taking that into all aspects of their life at a young age. While high school is just 4 short years, what I learned during my time on high school sports has deeply impacted me. Being a part of a sports team at Beverly High School is something you can't explain, it's only something you experienced. And I'm honored to have had that experience. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Congratulations to all the inductees. Okay, wrapping up the evening, we're going to honor the 1973 Boys Country Track Team on page 16. So the 1973 Beverly High School Cross Country Team proved to be an unstoppable force in their initial season in the Northeast Conference. This team was undefeated in NEC competition. They won the Northern Area Championship and won the Division I state meet where they defeated Catholic Memorial, and then they also beat Catholic Memorial, who was an arch rival, in the all-state meet as well. And I think we're going to have the whole team come up, and then Jim McGillivray is going to say a few words. So come on up, please. This is going to be for you guys, so I don't know what you want to do. Back to citations. Okay.
Thanks, Bernie. Is she bossing us around? Yeah. Well, here we are, boys, 50 years after the fact, almost. 50 years. In my case, 50 pounds.
In my case, 100. 1 pound per year.
Well, some of us are more than 50, some are less. It's not like we're 50 pounds overweight. Back when we were running, we were 25 pounds underweight. A strapping 145, 6 feet. Now, back in '73, we entered into the Northeastern Conference for the first time, so we really didn't know what to expect. On paper, the opposition didn't look that strong. But when we got to run against them, they weren't that strong there either. Now, only 4 runners from other schools broke our top 5. We had 9 meets, and we pitched shutouts in 6 out of 9. A shutout in cross country is when your first 5 guys beat their first guy. So that happened 6 out of 9 times. Swampscott had 2 guys break into our top 5, but we had a few guys resting that day. So we let them have those. But as good as that was, it was nothing different than what the team before us did. We were undefeated, won the Northern Area meet. That's what, when we were sophomores, that's what the seniors did. Undefeated in the Essex County, they won the Northern Area meet. And they were led by role models like Brian Reinhold and Mike Woods, who's here tonight. As juniors, the seniors in that group, they also were undefeated, won the Northern Area meet. And they were led by Paul Smith, who's just inaugurated tonight, as well as that Keith Barsanti. And I have to laugh, if Keith was here today, you know, using the words Keith Barsanti and role model in the same sentence has probably never been uttered, safe to say. So not only did we go undefeated and win the Northern Area meet, even the team after us in '74 did the same thing. 4 years in a row, undefeated Northern Area meet. Well, what did all 4 of those teams have in common? Coach Fred Hammond.
Good looks.
Boy, he would have loved tonight. He would have loved it. He's got a team up here, Paul Smith, and so many of you, whether you're football or soccer, you had a track element as well. So he just would have been out of this world, and we miss him. Now, Fred I'd never heard him yell at anybody. I don't know about you guys. But he would get the word across that what he expected of you. And his expectations were probably above your own. And he made us work for it. How many of us remember getting up meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning at Wenham Country Club? And the sun's not even out yet. And we're running those hills up in Wenham Golf Course. Halfway through our workout, the sun would come out. Then we'd go back home, shower, eat breakfast, go to school, and then in the afternoon, run our workout. You know, these days, that's borderline child abuse. But back then, it was what you had to do to be the best. Another great idea Coach had was Lynch Park.
Yeah.
How about some fun in the sun at Lynch Park? He'd say, guys, go over, jog over, I'll meet you there. Well, what's between the parking lot and the road at Lynch Park? That big hill. Guys, sprint up it, come down, and do it again. And what always bothered me was he'd never tell us how many we had to do. Just do another one, and another one, and another one. Psychologically, I needed to know, you know, are we halfway through? Or do we have 1 or 2 more? You always had more than what you hoped. But as a result, when we got to the starting line, we were ready. I know in my own mind, I'm thinking, well, no one worked harder to prepare for this meet than we did. A few of them may have worked as hard, but none worked harder. And that got us to the starting line at Franklin Park, where we were able to put it all together finally and win the Division I state tournament, where Cliff Staples was fourth. Chris Bucknam, who's getting a lot of exposure tonight, he's going to get some more too, was seventh. John Tonneson was 15th. I was 20th, and Jim Accomando was 28th. More importantly, it was 40 seconds between the first and the fifth guy. That's a pretty tight group. And that's what you need to win these state tournaments. And the bad news is, from what I've been told, we haven't won one since. We got to work on that. Now, let's meet the boys in the band. Oh, you do get dry up here. Co-captain, Rick Purdy. Rick had one of the top fastest times on our home course at Cooney Field, and he did it as a junior. He was, when healthy, he was probably our best runner, strongest runner. And fun fact, him and I decided to run 23 miles one afternoon when Coach said to go out and do some distance. We just kept on running. And he went out and drove it that night just to see how long it was, 23 miles. You couldn't do that today because we couldn't afford the gas. The other co-captain, Chris Bucknam, who also had a top 4 time in the home course at Cooney Field. Chris was one of the best competitors I've ever seen. Great leader, and he won the NEC conference meet individuals. And as we were told earlier, Chris is currently the head coach at University of Arkansas, which just 2 weeks ago, by the way, won the NCAA Indoor Track Championships. His athletes placed in 9 out of 16 events. He's the Nick Saban of college track and field.
Nick Saban.
Nick Saban, that's what I said. Yeah. And I talked to him last night, and he was really bummed that he couldn't make it. He gave me a message to say that he loved you all, and that we were freaking awesome. He did say that this summer he's going to have a steak and whiskey barbecue. We're all invited. Okay. He'll love that. Haven't had set a date yet, though. Let's see. Next is Cliff Staples, who also had a top 4 time in the home course. Cliff's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. Would run forever, never complain, got better and better. He was our first finisher at the state meet. Great career in Beverly, and a great career at UMass Amherst, which was a powerhouse back then, still is. Next is John Tonneson, which I hate to say we lost to cancer last summer, just a few weeks after losing Coach Hammond. It was a lousy summer. We wouldn't be here without John. He always finished in the top 5. He was a junior. But without him, we don't win the states. Jim Accomando. Yet another Centerville guy. Trivia question: 3 of our top 5 finishes in the state meet were from Centerville. God's country.
No, Prospect Hill.
We can go back and forth. This was Jim's first year as cross-country runner. He came on, really came on in the second half of the year and sealed the deal in the state meet, but with finishing 28th. Again, having a 40-second spread between first and fifth, that's tough to beat. We also running for us as underclassmen was Scott Green, Dan Richard. These guys led the cross-country team the following year to undefeated seasons and winning the Northern Area meet. I always said that you could have taken the first 5 guys in '73, put them in your pocket, the next 5 guys would have probably gone undefeated too, or have a winning record, that's for sure. But I know, speaking just like Chris, I love you guys too. I miss not seeing you. This has been a great reunion. Let's do it more often and make sure we'll commit Chris to that steak and Jack Daniels night this summer. Thank you.
Okay, well, whoops. That is going to wrap up the evening. Now, I know we didn't have anybody that wanted to come up and sing Onward. Any volunteers for the after-hours party by any chance? All right, so, yeah. Hold on, I think our CFO wants to come up and say something. What do you mean, no? Oh, yeah, so, thank you, Deb. So our CFO suggested that a lot of people have been spoken about tonight, which is great to hear their acknowledgement. So please feel free to nominate them for the Hall of Fame. Thank you, Deb. So, and then in wrapping up, again, just want to congratulate the 7 inductees, amazing athletes. Want to congratulate the 3 amazing coaches. Obviously, the 1973 cross-country team, an amazing accomplishment. I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's been a great evening. Appreciate the support. And again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night.